I gave both AIs the same job. 7 real business tasks, same deadline, same budget. GPT 5.4 won the first 3, and it wasn't even close. I nearly stopped the experiment right there. Then I ran task 4. At 2:14 a.m., one of them finished the rest while I slept. The benchmarks say these models are tied. The benchmarks have no idea what just happened. In the next 3 minutes, I'll show you the exact task where GPT 5.4 absolutely destroyed Claude, and the one where Claude did something that made me question why I'd ever hire a human employee again. By the end, you'll know exactly which system to build your entire business on. No sponsorships, no affiliate deals, just what happened when I ran 7 real founder tasks through both of them. Here's what happened. March 5th, OpenAI dropped GPT 5.4. 1 million token context window, native computer use, and a brand new Excel integration that builds live spreadsheet models from plain English. A month before that, Anthropic shipped Claude Opus 4.6 with something nobody expected: agent teams and agent skills that let AI chain multiple tasks without a human touching anything. On paper, nearly identical. SWE Bench verified, the gold standard for coding. Claude scores 80.8%. GPT 5.4 scores 80. OS World for computer use, 75 versus 72.7. If you stopped here, you'd think they're interchangeable. That's what I thought too. But there's a difference the benchmarks don't capture. Both models have agents. GPT 5.4 has codecs for autonomous coding, native computer use, tool search, serious agentic power. But here's the thing OpenAI won't tell you. Those features live behind the API. You need developer chops to wire them together. Claude took a completely different path. Agent skills. One plain English file describing what you want done. No code, no API keys, no middleware. Same destination, completely different door. And that door gap? It showed up in task 4 in a way I genuinely didn't expect. There's one task where Claude did something I've never seen any AI do, and it fundamentally changed how I think about building a business. But first, let me show you where GPT 5.4 won, because it earned those wins. Task 1. Research. I asked both to map the current state of AI consulting pricing in the US. GPT 5.4 came back with a structured breakdown in 11 seconds flat. Sources linked, data organized, ready to use. Claude produced deeper analysis but took 40 seconds and required me to ask 2 follow-up questions. When you're in founder mode and need answers now, 11 seconds versus 40 matters. Edge. GPT 5.4. Task 2. And this is where the gap blew open. Data analysis. Specifically, spreadsheets. I needed a quarterly revenue model with 3 growth scenarios based on real client data. GPT 5.4 has this new ChatGPT for Excel integration, an add-in that lives inside your workbook. I described what I needed in plain English. 4 minutes later, I had a working Excel model. Not a draft, not pseudocode I'd need to translate. A live model with linked formulas across 3 sheets, scenario toggles, and sensitivity analysis built in. Picture this. You've got a client pitch next Tuesday. You open Excel, type, build me a revenue model with conservative, base, and aggressive scenarios using these assumptions, and 4 minutes later, the model is live. Linked formulas, scenario toggles. It even pulled real-time market data from FactSet without me asking. 87.3% on OpenAI's spreadsheet benchmark, up from 68 with the previous model. Claude can analyze data you upload, but it can't live inside Excel. For founders who run their business from spreadsheets, that gap is massive. Third test, financial modeling for an investor pitch. I described a 12-month cash flow projection with seasonal adjustments. GPT 5.4 built it inside Excel in 6 minutes, auto-connected to S&P Global data feeds, and even flagged a cash crunch in month 7 I hadn't considered. Claude wrote a thorough narrative analysis. Insightful, but I still had to manually build the spreadsheet. 3 tasks done. GPT 5.4 up 3-0. And I'm thinking, this comparison might be over. I was about to declare a winner. I nearly stopped the experiment right there. Then I ran task 4, and everything flipped. I asked both to do something most founders need, but most comparison videos never test. Something that requires more than one step, more than one skill. And this is where the benchmarks completely fell apart. Now, code generation. I asked both to build a landing page for a new lead magnet, not a template, a custom page with email capture, a countdown timer, and mobile responsiveness. Claude Opus 4.6 running through Claude Code operates directly in your terminal. It read my existing project files, understood the styling I'd already been using, created the components, ran the development server, caught 2 errors in its own code, fixed them, and told me the page was live on localhost. I didn't touch my keyboard once. GPT 5.4 is the first model to beat human expert coders on terminal bench. 75.1 versus 72.4 for humans. The code it produced was excellent, but the experience? Copy from chat, paste into editor, run, error, back to chat, get fix, paste again, run. Every step required me. The code quality was nearly identical to Claude's. The workflow felt like 2 different decades. A 30-day independent test by Rise Labs confirmed this. Claude hit 95% functional accuracy on coding tasks versus ChatGPT's 85%. Not because the code is dramatically smarter, because it operates in context. It sees your files, knows your patterns, fixes its own mistakes before you even notice them. Task 5. Content creation. I asked both to write a LinkedIn post about the future of AI automation for small businesses. GPT 5.4 came back in 8 seconds, polished, professional. It could have been written by any competent marketer. Claude took 22 seconds, but the post sounded like me, my cadence, my specific way of making a point. I posted it without changing a word. On knowledge work across 44 professional occupations, legal drafting, business analysis, strategic planning, Claude beats GPT 5.2 by 144 ELO points. That gap isn't about speed, it's about depth. 3-2. GPT 5.4 technically still leading. I put the full benchmark comparison and the exact agent skill template from task 6 into a free cheat sheet. Links in the description. Because what happened next changed everything. Next, customer support automation. The ask was simple. Build a system that reads incoming customer emails, categorizes them by urgency, drafts appropriate responses, and escalates anything critical to my phone. With Claude, I wrote one agent skill, one file. Plain English instructions describing the chain. Read the email, classify it, draft a response matching our brand voice, flag anything with the words refund or cancel or legal for immediate human review. Claude chained all 4 capabilities together. I triggered it, it ran. Every test email got categorized correctly. Every draft response matched our tone, every escalation fired on time. No code, no middleware, no Zapier. One agent skill. Now, could GPT 5.4 do this? Technically, yes. Codex can chain tasks autonomously. Custom GPTs with actions can wire up APIs, but that requires writing code, configuring endpoints, managing authentication. I'm a founder, not a developer. So I use ChatGPT the way most founders do, the chat interface. And there, each individual step was handled beautifully. Classification, accurate. Drafts, well written. Escalation logic, solid. But I was the glue between every step. Copy the classification output. Paste it into the drafting prompt. Copy that draft. Check the escalation logic manually. The capability exists inside GPT 5.4. The accessibility for non-technical founders? That's where Claude's plain English agent skills change the game. And if you're watching this thinking, I'm not technical enough to build agents, that's exactly the point. You don't have to be. And then the final test, the one I'd been building toward, full workflow orchestration. Research a trending topic in my niche, create a content outline, write a complete first draft, then generate 3 LinkedIn posts from that draft. 4 tasks, 1 chain, no breaks. 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I set up the agent skill, plain English. 4 steps described in sequence. Research this topic using these parameters. Outline the key points targeting founders. Write a 2,500-word script in my voice. Then extract 3 LinkedIn post angles from the finished draft. I triggered it and went to bed. At 2:14 a.m., I checked the timestamps the next morning. Claude finished. 4 tasks, zero human input. I woke up to a complete content package sitting in my project folder. Research brief with 17 sources, outline with 5 beats, a polished draft that needed maybe 15 minutes of editing, 3 LinkedIn posts ready to schedule. And this is where Anthropic's Agent Teams feature goes from research preview to jaw-dropping. In their own internal experiment, they ran 16 parallel Claude agents, working simultaneously, building a C compiler from scratch. 100,000 lines of code, written in Rust. In 2 weeks, 99% pass rate on the GCC test suite. That compiler can build the Linux kernel. This isn't a chatbot that gives good answers. This is an AI workforce that ships production-grade work while the founder sleeps. Honestly, the output quality at each individual step would have been just as good with GPT 5.4, maybe beaten it. But I would have spent 2 hours manually routing output from one step to the next. 5-2, Claude, and the score doesn't even capture it. The real difference was 2 hours of my Tuesday night. If you want more experiments like this, real tests, no hype, subscribe. I test these models so you don't burn $300 figuring out which one actually works. But I haven't told you the most important part yet, because there's a $200 question hiding in these results that most founders get completely wrong. The question every founder asks me, which one should I pay for? And the honest answer is, you're asking the wrong question. GPT 5.4 costs $2.50 per million input tokens. Claude Opus 4.6 costs $5. On paper, GPT 5.4 is 50% cheaper. But run the math on that workflow orchestration task. A 4-step chain on GPT 5.4. 4 separate API calls at roughly 25,000 tokens each. That's 100,000 tokens at $250 per million, about 25 cents in API costs. Plus 2 hours of my time sitting there connecting the steps. Claude's agent skill, 1 trigger, roughly 40,000 tokens total, 20 cents, plus 0 hours. If your time is worth $50 an hour, GPT 5.4 actually cost you $100.25. Claude cost you 20 cents. The cheaper model cost 500 times more for the same result. That math flips completely for spreadsheets. If I need a revenue model built in Excel, GPT 5.4 does it in 4 minutes for a few cents. Claude can't touch Excel natively. I'd spend 30 minutes building it manually. Different task, different winner. The framework is simple. GPT 5.4 when you want to be in the driver's seat, spreadsheets, financial models, quick research, data analysis, anything where output goes straight into a tool you're already using. Half the price of Claude. And for those tasks, nothing touches it. Claude Opus 4.6 for anything that should run without you. Code that needs to understand your code base. Content that needs to match your voice. Customer automation. Multi-step workflows. Both models can do autonomous work, but Claude lets you describe that work in plain English and walk away. No API, no code, one agent skill file. That's the gap that matters for founders who aren't developers. The real answer? Don't pick one. A carpenter doesn't argue about whether a hammer is better than a drill. They use both. GPT 5.4 is your power tool. Fastest, cheapest, lives inside your spreadsheets. Claude is your autonomous employee. Describe the job in English, trigger it, go to sleep. The founder who uses both builds faster than the one still reading comparison articles trying to pick a winner. Remember, I gave both AIs the same job. 7 tasks. GPT 5.4 won the first 3, then task 4 happened. Both models are capable of autonomous work, but one let me describe the job in plain English and go to sleep. The other needed me wiring things together through APIs and chat windows. The question was never which model is smarter. The question is, do you want to build the plumbing yourself or write one file and let AI handle the rest? Tonight, do this. Open Claude. The free version works. Think about the most repetitive task in your business, the one you do every single week that makes you feel like a robot. Maybe it's pulling data for a weekly report. Maybe it's writing client follow-ups. Maybe it's sorting through leads. Describe it to Claude in plain English. Ask it to write you an agent skill that automates it. You won't nail it on the first try. Nobody does. But the moment you see AI working on your task at 2 a.m. while you're asleep, That's the moment you stop being someone who uses AI tools and start being a founder who deploys AI agents. There's a difference, and after tonight, you'll feel it. Join our free community, Zero to AI Founder on School, where we share every agent skill template, every automation workflow, and help each other build. Links in the description. I'll see you in the next one.